Welcome to the Workshop Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew, and joining me is let's just call you co-host now because...
Am I? Or am I just like your occasional guest when you can't find anyone else?
Well, I have people lined up who just haven't been able to get scheduled because...
I'm just teasing.
Because we're busy.
We are busy.
And other people are busy.
Mm-hmm.
And busyness happens.
It's true.
Anyway. Yeah, my wife. Welcome.
Thank you. I don't know what you're supposed to say with that. Continue. Sorry.
So last week we released an episode that was... Well, we re-released an episode. Probably just prepare everybody here for the next month or two anyway. House stuff is hitting the fan, so that's busyness.
That's one way of putting it.
You're starting working.
And my master's restarts.
And your master's restarts.
Yeah, we're busy.
And your next semester starts again.
Mm-hmm.
What was your final grade for this semester? What's your GPA sitting at currently? She says smugly.
I'm not saying it smugly. I'm like embarrassed. It's a 4.0.
Because she's smarter than me.
I'm not smarter than you.
I'm only at you clearly are, because I'm only at a 3.87.
Different schools, different programs, different level of OCD. That's true. You're not even saying anything. You're like, yep, we're just going to leave that.
It's probably true. Anyway, she's smart. That's why I have her on. Yeah, so kind of going forward into the future, over the next couple of months, I'm going to try to probably record shorter episodes, try to get some guests lined up and scheduled. But, that time of the year for everybody, it seems like. But also do a few shorter episodes, kind of like the 5-Minute Monday things again. Mm-hmm. Also on the Patreon thing, I have been trying to do a weekly post about mental health stuff, obviously. Mindfulness, exercises, that type of thing. That's available to everybody, regardless of the tier, and even to the free Patreon followers, which there are. So I've been trying to provide something there. Obviously, always, whenever there's a guest on, there's a pre-show and a post-show that ends up being to the paid tiers. So if you want to listen to those, you have to go to the actual paid tier support, which we appreciate everybody. Speaking of which, there's a new Patreon supporter, David Wood of DW Wood Builds. So thank you for that. And if you don't follow him, go over and follow him. You don't, probably not. I don't think you follow anybody that I follow on Instagram.
But don't feel offended by that, because I don't really follow anybody that isn't like directly my friend.
She doesn't follow me either.
In person. I do follow you, but it's just not, that's not where my interest lies.
Yep. She's not a social media person. She does this as a conversation with me and to support me.
Well, and I enjoy it. And it's not that I don't like, I do have some podcasts and stuff that I listen to. I'm not.
Yeah, like the Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, that type of social media is not your thing at all.
It's not.
And which leads nicely into our topic, because I don't think you should, if it's something that you're interested in, then you should probably be interested in it. And if you're not, you probably shouldn't dabble in it. Right?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. There's a lot of times, you brought up the example of, well, you explain it, your cup of water thing.
All right, so if you have 2 cups of water and one cup has water in it, and if you're trying to pour the water into the other cup, if you're doing it slowly so that you don't spill, what happens is that you end up making a bigger mess, right? Hardly any of it actually hits the cup. Most of it dribbles down the side and onto the floor, and you just make a mess. But if you take the cup and you confidently pour it into the other cup, it all goes in, generally speaking. Not necessarily when our 3-year-old does it, but as a general rule for adults, the water goes into the cup. And the analogy was made that, like, when you attack something with confidence, I should use the word attack, when you go for something with confidence and it's something that you want, go all in. Pour it all in at once. go for it. Don't dribble in a little bit or just kind of dabble at a little bit. You're just going to make a mess and it won't actually accomplish what you wanted in the end. Generally speaking, it's not always the way that works, but...
So attack everything with the confidence of a 3-year-old boy in a Batman shirt.
Yeah, ours wore a Superman shirt.
Or a Superman shirt, yeah. Either way.
He wore the whole outfit for a while.
He did.
Even hiking, do you remember? He was so hot and he would not take it off.
Yep. Yep. And then that's a funny story actually. On a complete tangent. So we were out hiking in the mountains and I mean, what was he? He would have been 5.
He was 5.
5. Well, he might have been 6. Somewhere around there anyway.
5 or 6.
And he had this Superman outfit on and we're hiking down a couple miles, 2-3 miles at this point, and another hiker passed going the other way and they said, "Oh, good thing Superman's here to protect us. We don't have to be afraid of bears anymore." And then they kept walking and he had like this super like, "Oh yeah, that's me. I'm Superman" grin on.
But if we ever called him a different name, like if we called him Superman, I'm not Superman, I'm Owen.
Yep.
Like, very offended.
Yeah, but if other people mistook him for Superman,
that was okay.
That was okay.
But not if they actually knew who he was, then that wasn't okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
If they knew his secret identity, it wasn't okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess that's one of the things that it's important to do. I think as adults, we approach our various activities and crafts, and especially crafts type things, with not enough confidence, or maybe not confidence is not the right word. Too much concern for what other people will think, or hesitancy.
Well, I think that there's like this underlying current from social media that if it's a hobby or a craft of value, you must be making money from it.
Yeah, that is a common problem.
Right? And we've lost like the love of creativity for creativity's sake.
Yeah.
And not that people not that all of you in the maker community have lost that, but I feel like there's that general pressure from society that like you need to be, like your YouTube channel needs to be monetized, or you have to record yourself doing it, or whatever. Like that's not my first thought when I do something, but I know that it is for a lot of people, and
including me.
Yes, including you. But I think that you lose some of the joy and also some of the, I don't know if ambition is the word that I'm looking for, but kind of is what I'm meaning.
Well, it's
the drive, kind of, because you're not doing it for being creative necessarily, or it takes something away from that. And I feel like for me, I think that's part of why I stay away from social media, because I went into something that I loved creatively as a career, and it killed a lot of it.
Uh-huh.
That made it very difficult for me to find joy in that thing anymore.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say along with that, I think you're 100% right with the kills the joy of it. If you're, because I was going to bring up the Alfie Kohn book that we've read, Punished by Rewards, and I know I brought this up before, and if you're interested in reading it, it's linked in the description. Highly recommend it. It's a good book. Anyway, so Punished by Rewards, it talks about the inherent demotivating effects of extrinsic rewards, right? And so you have these extrinsic rewards, like somebody's giving you something to do the thing, or punishing you, or rewarding you, whatever it is, but it's external to you, versus your intrinsic motivation. And so when you're looking for money for something, then that becomes an extrinsic reward, and extrinsic rewards are always demotivating.
Okay. Caveat, neurodivergent community. There are a lot of people, and there's a lot of studies being done right now where you're talking about, with people, especially with ADHD and autism, where your brain is wired and works differently, there are some things in your life that you are potentially going to need to start with an extrinsic reward to make into something. It's definitely not something you want to be doing like all the time. But there could be cases made for when having some rewards and having some sort of system that way is actually going to be beneficial for people in the neurodivergent realm.
But it has to be applied in a specific
There is
way.
a specific
it can't be
way.
just,
It's not just like, oh, I'm going to get. It's more of the along
I'll
the
give you
line
candy if you finish this thing.
and there is some of that, and there's definitely more of that going on than needs to be going on. But for some kids, because like social interaction is not something they want to do or anything like that, they're not gonna magically wake up one day and be like, oh, I want to socialize, right? And so there is some need for some sort of extrinsic reward for that sort of thing. Making it as natural as possible is great. Making it, and I know Alfie Kohn talks about like even not praising, but for some of those kids, sometimes that's a great place to start, and a verbal reward is good. And for some of those kids, this also means adults, right? Because and there's lots of us who are undiagnosed. You need to have some sort of reward system put in place for yourself for some things that are difficult tasks for you to complete.
Mm-hmm.
I guess is what I'm saying. Like, because there are going to be things that you have to do or you have to make yourself do that you're just not going to be motivated to do. And that is especially true for people with like ADHD, autism, especially if you have both of those things because your brain's fighting itself all the time. You might need to give yourself some little helps along the way.
Yeah. So on that, kind of taking a step back, and I was thinking beyond the neurodivergent community, kind of neurotypical, whatever that is,
whoever is that anyway.
Whoever is neurotypical. Social media, in and of itself, you can see the demotivating effects of extrinsic motivation. Like if you get trapped into the social media cycle of looking for likes and views and that type of stuff, those things are motivating. But then when they decline for whatever reason, whether it
casts you into depression.
Doesn't cast me in depression. That's crazy.
Yeah. Sorry, was that sarcasm dripping from my mouth?
Venomous sarcasm. Anyway, when you get trapped into that cycle, when the reward stops coming, it's harder to do the thing that you're being rewarded for. Like I have a deal with DAP products coming up for some future posts in the social media, and I've been struggling with the desire to do them. Like I'm going to do them because they sent me the products and stuff like that, and they're going to be used in our house build.
And they're good products that we used anyway.
And they are. It's not like
It's not like we're getting some weird thing that we don't need either.
Yeah, I'm not flogging a video game or what's the one that showed up in my social media yesterday? It's like Narcy jewelry or something like that.
I like how you look at me like I should know these things.
Yeah, but they thought that I would be a great ambassador. And then I get the occasional like swimwear, which obviously I do a lot of.
They definitely have not seen you in a bathing suit.
Oh, thank you.
No, just think that they're not usually looking for the hairiest person out there.
Thanks.
But it's true.
It is true.
And I love you for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, you snuggle me like a bearskin rug.
No, it's great. I have my own teddy bear.
Anyway, totally derailed.
Sorry.
I don't even know where I was. Demotivation of social media. But anyway, where I was going to go with that, and kind of maybe to wrap this all up, is creativity, and spending some time being creative is going to be more motivating than social media. Interesting fact. So everybody knows that dopamine, the dopamine reward cycle thing is what, well, maybe not everybody does, but so dopamine and rewards are what creates addiction, right? Is short and simple. It's more complicated than that, but anyway, dopamine with drug addicts, the dopamine rush is pre-drug use. It's actually like it's like the anticipation is where you get the dopamine hit.
Oh yeah, we read this.
Not from the drug itself.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's where like with drug users, the addiction cycle is you oh, this is going to be great. You get the drug. It wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be, so now I have to do more, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so transferring that to a more applicable setting, because I don't think the majority of the listeners of this podcast are hard drug users. Correct me if you're wrong, or if I'm wrong, and stop if you are. But
sound advice.
Yes, don't do drugs, kids.
Good job, Dr. Hatch.
Didn't make it all the way through third grade for nothing. Anyway,
not even commenting.
It's getting late and I'm losing my focus. Social media. So the social media addiction and the dopamine interaction is the same. You get that same
excitement before you
get into it.
It makes it worse.
Yeah, it makes it worse. And so you're better off not doom scrolling and doing something creative. And from my understanding of the research so far, it really doesn't matter what that creativity looks like.
Yeah.
Like it's whether you're painting or woodworking or blacksmithing or basket weaving or throwing paint at a wall and watching the interesting splatter pattern.
Maybe.
Like braid ponytails in the dog
specialty dog cuts.
Well, there you go. If that's
making like dog cutting dog hair to look like other animals.
Like those weirdos that groom their cats to look like lions?
Yeah. That's
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry if I just offended anybody in our listeners that grooms their cat to look like a lion, but you're wrong. And there's something wrong with you if you do that.
Well, I get it for like lots of people have it done because of mats and stuff on long-haired cats.
Yeah, but why don't you just shave the cat all the way instead of having
Well, because you want to shave a cat's face?
I don't want to shave a cat, let alone...
I think you'd get shaved as well if that's what was happening.
Yeah. Anyway, so do something creative.
We really derailed today.
Yeah, this one is a bit disjointed. You can tell we're tired.
That's what happens, doing all the things.
Doing everything all at once. So, recap. Commit. If you're going to do something, commit. What's the
do all the things? Don't be us.
Yeah, don't follow our example. We're a bad example, but we're committed in all of it.
Yeah. We're committed to chaos. We've got a problem.
There we go. Committed to chaos.
Oh.
What's the Australian word? We have some Australian. Fair dinkum.
Oh, yes.
That's the one. If we have any, I know we have some Australian listeners. And so I believe I'm using the phrase right, fair dinkum. You know, that's like being committed and all in. If I'm incorrect, send a fierce rebuttal to questions@workshoптherapypodcast.com and I will read it with all due humility next week.
That'd be awesome.
Or if you have questions, which is the actual reason the email exists, is questions@workshoптherapypodcast.com, send them there.
Sounds good. So proud of you for memorizing that.
Thank you.
And being committed to it.
Yeah, you see how I said it out there with I just poured my cup of words.
I did very well. Good job.
And I didn't mess it up like I did 3 times last time. Yeah. Anything else to say?
Nope.
Thanks for listening. So if you found anything from this episode to be helpful and you want to reinforce it for yourself, I'd like to invite you to share it with a friend in the next 24 hours. That'll help reinforce it in your mind and it'll help those around you. which is always a good thing. So thanks again for listening, and now I'd like to say thank you to all the amazing patrons of the Workshop Therapy podcast. You guys make the show possible. If you're finding the show helpful and you want to support it, there are a few tiers, including a simple $1 a month option to just say thanks. For $5 a month, you can get access to the patrons only feed that has a pre-show and a post-show, in addition to the regular podcast all in one feed. You all know that the good stuff happens after the official mics are off, right? If you can't support financially, I totally understand, but I'd love it if you left a 5-star review or told a friend about the podcast. If you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear that as well. Send it to questions@workshoptherapypodcast.com and I'll get it on the show. I want to say thank you to all the patrons of the Workshop Therapy podcast, but especially to the founding fathers, and they are Mr. Matthew Serio from Argiano Serio, Mr. Brad Harrison of Brad's Customs, Mr. Keith Drennan of Blackthorn Concepts, Mr. Eric Peterson of Overall Maker Works, Mr. Brandon Millichamp of Tectonic Creations, and the one and only the Grant Alexander. So a special thank you to the founding fathers, and thank you to everybody who supports and shares the Workshop Therapy podcast.